Bellamy, the president of the Mississippi Association of Educators, and today I will serve as your moderator. We have a panel of public servants who have come to speak to you about strengthening our schools. We will talk about everything from teacher pay raise to where the money is to fund our public schools, to the devastation caused by cuts in funding to our schools, as well as the devastation of those cuts to our own communities. We have 3 legislators who must move on to the floor, so we will begin immediately. Let me introduce to you first Representative Cecil Brown. Representing the City of Jackson, Representative Cecil Brown is the former chair of the House Education Committee and former head of the Department of Finance and Administration. Everyone knows that Representative Brown is the expert when it comes to state finances. Representative Brown shares his passion for public education with his wife, who has dedicated her life as an educator. Representative Brown will now tell us where the money is that could be used to provide the tools and resources that ensure positive student outcomes for Mississippi's children. Representative Brown.
Thank you, George, and thank all of you for being here and having those legislators here to speak to you this morning. Got a question for you. How many of you believe it's better to give big tax breaks to outlet malls than it is to fully fund MAE? Any hands out there? How many of you believe it's better to give tax breaks to big oil and gas drilling companies than it is to fully fund MAE? How many of you have enough teachers in your school district? How many of you have enough nurses, school nurses, counselors, equipment, supplies? How many of you have classrooms that are up to date, where the repairs and maintenance have been kept up to date? How many of you have classrooms that are full of books and computers for all the students? It ain't happening. And why not? Because we're not fully funding MAEP. MAEP stands for Mississippi Adequate Education Program. On 2 different occasions, this legislature and this council have voted to pass MAEP. We have made a commitment to fully fund MAEP. What does that mean? That we have committed to give every school district enough money to give every child the opportunity for an adequate education. That's what it means. We're currently some 12% below fully funding MAEP. We're at the time we're 12% below fully funding. We don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough equipment, we don't have school counselors, we don't have school nurses. We've got $548 million in the bank. $548 million has been put in the bank. If you look in your book that you have, your handout, you'll see what that $548 million is. I think that's in cash in reserve. So we're getting ready to put another $100 million or so in cash in reserve. At a time when you're not able to provide the services you need for adequate education for every child. That is not right. It is not fair. And by the way, it's not legal. That's not what the law says. Now, can we fully, we're about $260 to $300 million short of fully funding MAEP. Can we fund all that in 1 year? No. I don't think we can. I don't think we can catch up in 1 year. We didn't get time in 1 year. We're not going to catch up in 1 year. But we can begin to catch up. We can put more money in MAEP. The legislative recommendation, the bill that is coming before the legislature to fund public schools in the state does not put any additional money in MAEP. Don't listen to what you hear from the other side. People who say it does. It absolutely does not. No additional funding from the state for public schools. Any additional funding is going to have to come from your local school district. And what does that mean? It means a tax increase. It means an ad valorem tax increase. Just like you've had the last 4 or 5 years, you're looking at another tax increase if you're going to maintain level funding for your school district at the local level. There is enough money to begin to chip away at the shortfall in MAP. We could put another $50 million in MAP this year and never miss a beat. In fact, you'll see in the paper, if you read the news lately, you'll see that the Lieutenant Governor has said that the Revenue Committee, the committee that sets the revenue estimate, estimates how much money is going to be available, is about to increase that estimate. We are more than $170 million above the original estimate. $170 million in new money that's available, and we're not putting any of it in education. Zero, nothing. We passed new programs, we passed new third grade reading aid, for school. We passed a lot of things that require the State Department of Education to do things for some of your districts, to do things unfunded mandates. We passed that, but we haven't given any more money going to the classroom. Again, it's not right, it's not fair, and it's not legal. We're going to continue to fight those that believe in public education. There are a number of members of the legislature, members of the House here, sitting over here at this table, maybe around the room, who support public education. I'm one of those. Many of you, all of you, have supported public education. All I can tell you is we're going to do the best we can do. We're going to fight, continue to try to put more money in MAP. But make no mistake about it, the decision to not fund MAP, to not put any additional money, state money, in public schools in this state, is being made by three people. Three people in control of the first screen. One of them sits right upstairs. One of them is Lieutenant Governor. The second one sits in the middle chair. That's the governor. And the third one sits on the far end, way up high, Speaker of the House. Those three people make the decision. We can't get them to change their minds and make a commitment to public education. Not with their mouths, not with what they say about how important public education is, but by committing to put funding in to follow the law and fully fund MAP, then we're not going to get anywhere with this. I would ask you to make those phone calls, to talk to people, talk to your legislators, and commit to fully fund MAP. Now, I'm not going to get into the teacher pay issue, that's another issue, it's just as important. We've got to do that also. Thank you again for having us this morning. Appreciate all of you.
Derek Simmons represents the Delta region of our state. He has served as the youngest school board member and secretary of the Greenville Public School District. Since 2007, he has taught as an adjunct professor at the Mississippi Valley State University. He currently serves on the Greenville Public School Board of Trustees. Today, Senator Simmons will walk us through the state budget cuts to basic public school funding over the last 6 years. Since MAEP is an inside baseball kind of political term, we call it basic public school funding to convey the meaning that all of us can understand without explanation. Senator Simmons will also walk us through some critical classroom tools and resources that these budget cuts will provide to ensure positive student outcomes. Senator Simmons. I'm sorry. We have to make a switch. I'm just now made aware of that. Representative Sonia Williams-Barnes. Ms. Barnes is the daughter of the first kindergarten teacher in Mississippi. Representative Sonia Williams-Barnes represents the Gulfport region of the Gulf Coast. Since arriving in the legislature in 2012, Williams-Barnes has championed early education issues and sponsored the legislation to require all 5-year-olds to attend kindergarten. Representative Williams-Barnes' passion for kindergarten comes from home, from her own mother, Rosemary Hayes Williams. Representative Williams-Barnes learned that kindergarten increases diplomas, or KIDS, as we like to call her legislation. Representative Williams-Barnes will talk about kindergartens where they learn important social and grade-ready skills that create a formidable foundation for lifelong learning. Representative Sonia Williams-Barnes.
you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all coming out today. It truly exemplifies your interest in our children and the success of education in our state. As it was stated, my mother was the first pilot kindergarten teacher in the state of Mississippi. It was in 1976 in the school district of Pass Christian Public Schools, where she was chosen by the governor to be the first kindergarten teacher. And over her 33 and a half years as an educator, she always accredited much of the success of her children, of her students, but she always called them to early education. And for that reason, and many others, I am a strong advocate for early education. And I have since my first day in the legislature to encourage kindergarten, compulsory school age 5, versus what we currently have at age 6. Studies have shown that kindergarten is imperative to the success of children. It also shows that children who are in a full-time kindergarten score higher on tests in 3rd, 5th, and 7th grades than children who were not in a full-time kindergarten. And Mississippi has adopted the Common Core of our districts around the state, and my district has Common Core already in place. And as soon as spring of 2015, our students will be beginning to be assessed through Common Core, and they will be assessed K through 12, not 1 through 12. And for that reason, we need to make sure that our children that it's mandatory that our children go to school at age 5. We can't say that we want them to do well and read at age 8 in 3rd grade and not start them early. I mean, it's common sense to me that we do that. I have read a lot and done a lot of, studying records that, and it all shows that, kindergarten is imperative to the success of many of our students. And when talking to the State Department of Education, and when speaking of the cost that it would take for us to mandate that kindergarten is mandatory. Right now, somewhere between 95 to 98% of all students age 5 are in some form of kindergarten. So with that being said, it's not going to cost the state much. But when we speak of cost and, everything kind of, the end result is money, but the dollar amount. I feel that that kindergarten is imperative and is imperative to the economical success of our state. Education is the sharpest tool in the box to increase economical development. It's time for Mississippi to invest on the front end, and we will reap the benefits on the back end. Because if we encourage education, if we get and put our money behind education, it increases our workforce, it increases our economical stability, and it also increases us being progressive and a more competitive state in the nation. So I know that you all in this room are tool sharpeners. You all have invested in our children, and I ask that you continue to sharpen our tools and encourage others to do the same. Because as I always say, education is the sharpest tool in the box for economic growth. Thank you so much for having me here today, and please continue your efforts.
Representative Williams Barnes, and now Senator Simmons.
Thank you, Joyce, and thank everyone for coming out to this very important briefing on public education. I see some other friends of education in the room from the Senate side and also the House side. If you are still here, could the legislators that are currently here please stand So we really recognize, because these are our colleagues, these are our friends of education, and certainly we want to. My presentation is basically going to come up on the screen, and I want you all to know that MAE has in fact invested in creating this website, keeppublicschoolspublic.com. Please write that down, get the word out, and tell people to visit this website, keeppublicschoolspublic.com. It's a great resource for all of us in this room. And everything that you're going to see in my presentation will be found on this particular website, keeppublicschoolspublic.com. In Mississippi, like Cecil Brown said earlier, the legislature has actually funded MAEP, the formula, only twice in the history, in 2003 and 2007. Every other legislative session, the legislature has failed to fully fund public schools. Let's look at the impact of some of the budget cuts that we have experienced over the last 6 years. Let's say 2009 to present. We're talking about $1.3 billion in state budget cuts. Now this $1.3 billion that could have gone to the classroom to help reduce the size of our classroom, $1.3 billion that could have been used to update textbooks and technology, $1.3 billion, Representative Vaughn, as she mentioned, that could have been used for early childhood education, $1.3 billion that could have been used to create a well-rounded education for all of our children in Mississippi, including arts, the science, and other technology, other type courses to give our kids a well-rounded education. Now, let's talk about what we do know. We know that about 90% of Mississippi children attend public school. 90%. So if you have 90% of anything, it's just the right thing to do to invest in that. It's a great return on your investment. And so, as a person who actually knows how to invest, I think it's a pretty good investment. If you have 90% of anything, you want to put your money there, because it's certainly a return on our investment to do so. Now, I know I'm actually speaking to the choir when I speak to you all in this room, but it's very important that we take this message out of this room, out of this capital, back into our communities, and more importantly, those individuals that come to this capital every year who fail to fully fund education. They need to hear from you. So let's talk about what $1.3 billion could have provided for our students. Over 5,000 teachers could have been placed in our classrooms. Every child could have had 21st century technology to open his or her world of learning. Let's look in detail at some of the districts. And what I plan to do in this presentation is to go from the coast and come all the way up to North Mississippi, so you all can see the effect of $1.3 billion in cuts to our children. Let's start with Ocean Springs. Ocean Springs has experienced a $13.5 million hit in state budget cuts. What would that have done for Ocean Springs? That would have created about 56 additional teachers in the classroom. And we know if you have additional teachers in the classroom, it reduces the size of the teacher to student ratio, and it enhances the learning for every child in that particular school district. Let's look at Gulfport for a minute. The Gulfport School District has experienced a $14.1 billion budget cut. That would have provided an additional 59 additional teachers for students in that particular district. Meridian has experienced $15 billion in budget cuts. And if they would have had that, that's about, 63 additional teachers. And look on the slide when we talk about the technology that we could have actually created for that Meridian School District. Over 23,000 iPads, 14,000 computers. And so not only are we not enhancing the educational experience, even right now with this wave of technology, we're not even providing our kids with up-to-date technology due to what we are doing here at this Capitol by failing to fund our public schools. Let's look at Greenwood. Greenwood has experienced $7.1 million, Dr. Green, in budget cuts. We failed to put $7.1 billion, in the Greenwood Public School District. That would have created about 29 additional teachers, 10,000 or so iPads to enhance their educational experience. And then the school district where I'm from, Greenville, which I had the pleasure and the privilege to serve on the school board. And I remember where we actually had to do a reorganization, and we had lead teachers at the time. I know you all probably remember when we had lead teachers in the classroom. We had to basically do away with lead teachers and do away with assistant teachers, which was really, really bad, not only for the community, but more importantly, it was bad for the educational experience for our children in Greenville. And so it's really, really sad to say that Greenville had to experience a $16.2 million budget hit, and that would have created about 68 teachers in the classroom. Let's look at Tupelo for a minute. The Tupelo School District has experienced $17.8 million in budget cuts. That would have provided 74 additional teachers in the classrooms. And like I've indicated with all of the school districts, they could have had additional technologies, additional iPads. Is DeSoto County on your country? So let's look at DeSoto County, because a lot of times when we actually we debate legislation here at this Capitol, whether you're on the House side or the Senate side, a lot of times we get a lot of support from the DeSoto County School District because they support public education, and they need to know that they need to talk to some of their friends across the aisle to encourage fully funding our public schools. DeSoto County has experienced a $76 million hit, and that would have created $76 million. That would have created an additional 318 additional teachers in the DeSoto County School District. Now, let's go back home. And home is Jackson, right? And even though I'm from Greenville, Jackson is not really home because you all know I'm from Greenville. But let's say home for all lawmakers is Jackson. It's where we have the state office of the Mississippi Department of Education. It's where we have MAE right here. So let's consider Jackson as home because we come here for 90 days at the beginning of the year to do the right thing. And even though we attempt to do the right thing as friends of education, some people just don't want to do the right thing regarding public schools. So even right here at home in the Jackson Public School District, nearly $75 million has affected adversely that district, which would have been 311 teachers for the Jackson Public School District. I don't have to tell you that investing in classrooms, investing to our public education system will enhance the educational experience for our kids. It creates a great economic development for our communities. I mean, when you have good public schools, it does so much for the community. People don't want to actually get rid of their disposable income and try to help their children to go to private school. So it actually is a good return on your investment if you invest in public schools, because then children can go to public schools as opposed to people using their disposable income to send their kids to private schools. Fully funding public schools ensures that we live our legal and our moral obligation. It's just a law. We have failed to follow the law except for those 2 years that I mentioned earlier, 2003 and 2007. Let's follow the law. Let's actually do everything we can to fulfill our moral obligation regarding public schools. And I leave you with one last thought. As a legislator, your voices are important to me. Your voices are important to those legislators who stood up earlier, who are in fact friends of education. We hear you and we encourage you to call us anytime. We will stay in the trenches with you as we fight for fully funding our public schools. We ask you to continue to fight with us as we have a pay raise bill that is going through the legislative process. And it's not over until Saturday, or it's not over until we actually adjourn. So let's stay hopeful that we can get our colleagues across the aisle to join with us to fully fund our public schools. Thank you all so much for your time, and I'll stay around.
Mississippi Association of Educators and everyone attending this morning's briefing on public education, I would like to thank Representative Cecil Williams, Senator Derek Simmons, and Representative Sonia Williams Barnes for participating in today's briefing. And now I think they must leave to go to the floor. Except I think we're going to stick around or have to go. Let's give them another great hand. We thank them for giving us this insightful information on the funding of public education and teacher pay rates, the substantial cuts to our public schools, and how easily it is for Mississippi to afford to give our children a tremendous start to a healthy and more prosperous life. As I mentioned before, I am an educator. I've spent the past 37 years in public schools in Mississippi. I am also the grandmother of a future public school student. Teacher pay is in the news. It is very important to me, to my friends and my colleagues all across this state. We're very happy that the legislature is hearing our message, and we believe that they are going in the right direction. Now let me introduce you to a little more information about the CARE Act. The CARE Act is confirmed a raise for educators. Why should we care? Better educator salaries will allow us to recruit and retain the best, the brightest, and the most committed educators to ensure positive student outcomes. How does low educator pay affect schools and students? Students lose good educators to other states or other professions with better pay. I can tell you from personal experience that I have talked with an educator who left the field to go to be a manager of Sonic. I can also tell you that in my school, we nurtured a young teacher from an assistant teacher all the way to the head of the special education department. Now all of us know how special ed teachers are to us in our schools. This young lady was one of our best. A month ago, she left my school, went across the state line to Tennessee, and received $10,000 more a year to teach there. That is shameful. One of my colleagues had a practice teacher in her school. She earmarked him immediately as being a future educator and a wonderful educator in her classroom. She's sitting right back there, by the way. She nurtured this young man, and she grew him, and she taught him, and he became strong, and she said, he is good. However, at the end of his college career, he decided to go sell computers to provide for his family. Mississippi starting educator salary with a bachelor's degree and zero teaching experience is $30,900, and that excludes any local supplement. The average increase in pay from border states, if you will look at these, you will see why we are losing educators to our neighboring states. Some of our educators are willing to drive 20, 40, 60 miles a day to go to another state to make that much more money. The national average of starting salaries for a bachelor's degree with zero experience from 2013-14 pay scale to college salary report. Let's look at our competing occupations. In marketing, a college graduate can begin at $40,700. In civil engineering, $49,500. I once had a student, and I earmarked him, and I said, look, you would be a great teacher. We need science teachers down the hall. Go to college, come back and teach our science students here. And he laughed at me and he said, are you kidding? I'm going to be an engineer, and I'm going to, in a few years, make twice, maybe even 3 times more money than you're making. And you've been in this district and teaching as long as my parents can remember. Strengthen our schools. MAE's professional growth salary schedule. MAE is asking for a 5.5% increase. And if you will look at our chart, you will see that what we're trying to do is get our teachers to that $40,000 mark, which is for an average that would bring us equal to our neighboring states. So I think that you can see from my presentation that we need to support those teacher salaries now and forever. Thank you. Greenwood School District School Board President, Mr. Bill Clay. Bill Clay is the president of the school board of the Greenwood School District, a father and a grandfather. Mr. Clay has coached Little League baseball for 25 years and currently works for the new Stone Street Baseball League as director of baseball operations. In 2004, he founded the Greenwood Mentoring Group, a nonprofit 501c3 public charity. And in 2007, the organization purchased, remodeled an old building on 200 Avenue G and turned it into a learning center. The center reaches out to children in an at-risk neighborhood. It offers after-school tutoring and mentoring through dedicated volunteers. And I've learned he has a terrific sense of humor. So, Mr. Bill Clay.
Thank you, George. Good morning. Good morning. First of all, I want to give thanks to the man that's in charge of my life. On behalf of the Greenwood Public School District, the great city of Greenwood, where health happens, it is indeed an honor to be here today to share with you all some things that I've experienced going into my third year of being on the school board in the Greenwood Public School District. Let me tell you what I've learned. I have an extreme deep appreciation for the teachers in the classroom. With what they are working against. Every time I say they learn how to do this dance in terms of educating our children, somebody comes up with new. I am indeed proud, hoping that I say something today to get the people that's in charge of the future of our children. This is not a game. I didn't know the words fund balance, PUI, non-renewal, MAEP. In 2011, 2012, it was like French to me. I had no idea what the word meant. I had no idea exactly the number of hours, the time that our teachers put into the classrooms. Sometimes the people that are in charge of the purse strings need to walk a mile in these people's footsteps. They need to understand exactly what these people are going through. I've been involved with the lives of changing lives of young children since I was 22. That's when I coached my first Little League baseball team. We're still involved because, as we said, we have a nonprofit organization, the Greenwood Mentoring Group, which we work with the young kids. And I think every street in the state of Mississippi has an avenue. So the hood is just basically where these children live. Their desire to learn, their ability to learn, it just is great. It's the kid that comes from what I call the hiring district. So when you're looking at, sometimes you don't have to stay there and say what you believe in. What you believe in is what you do. We put the time in and making sure through Little League, I knew absolutely nothing about coaching baseball. I use baseball as what I call a way to get 15 to 20 to 30 young men during the summer months to be able to teach them character, to teach them respect, to teach them functionality. So when the opportunity came in 2007, when I thought at that particular time, how far can I go? Have I ran out of enough room or whatever to teach these children in the Greenwood community? The Lord said, wait a minute, I got a new avenue for you. I need a learning center, 200 Avenue G. All right, when he got that done, the next thing he said, I want you on the school board. I said, no, twice. The seventh time, everybody have got no call that you knew where that call came from. That last call was Carolyn McAdams. She said, Bill, I need you. That's hopefully this is why I'm here today. Let me share something with you. We're a football state. When we look at sometimes, we tell our kids, we're going to compete against the university, not necessarily the University of Alabama, but let's say the Alabama All-Star. But guess what? We're not going to give you no helmets. Guess what? We're not going to give you no shoulder pads. Guess what? We're not going to give you no shoes. That's $7.1 million that came out of the Greenwood budget. Now, what does that mean? The helmets, those are our teachers. The pads, what are those? That's technology. The shoes, what are those? Those are the students. So how do you expect for us to compete when you're not giving us the tool to compete with them? Now, they say every day is a learning experience. We was told who hold the purse strings. We was told that there was what, $548 million in the bank now. In Greenwood on the street corner, you know what we call that? That's a lot of cheese, baby. That is a serious amount of money that some kid that is hungry for the desire to learn is being denied the opportunity to learn. So the question that I ask, and the question that you should ask, is why are you all holding on to this money? Sometimes you have to find out the truth. The truth hurts sometimes, don't it? It hurts, but that is the way you get to the root of the problem. You have to ask the three gentlemen. We spend on this amount of money. Why are you all denying our children? I come on Buckhorn Plantation, Slaughter, Mississippi. The Delta is supposed to be the poorest region in the state. Finished high school basically at 17. That's what the time when segregation was so thick you could cut it with a knife. But I was not denied the right to education. So when you go into the Delta, when you talk about the poverty level, the educational level, what you're not seeing is what the children have the ability to do. There are people saying we are pouring of money in down the hole. Well, you keep pouring that money down the hole because there's something in that hole that needs to come out. And these are our children. Now, what I want to tell you a little bit too is I understand we have someone here with good figures. They said the money turns over how many times in a city? What, 5, 7 times? If we lost $7.1 million off the top, if that money's turning over 7 times, how much did we lose? We lost about $49 million. See, not only did we lose about 29 teachers, not only did we lose approximately, God knows how many iPads, up-to-date technology, new band uniform, mouthpiece, shoelaces, all of that. But guess what? When we lose these teachers, the realtors lose because they can't sell houses. The bank lose because there's no money. The doctors lose because there's nobody to see them. It's a trickle down when the educational process is sabotaged. And basically, when you have the money to educate and you do not educate, what are you doing? You're sabotaging the educational system in the state of Mississippi. Somebody needs to speak that language. I'm sure we have some people here that's capable of, as my mama used to say in old school, I can get the wax out of your ears, son. To make these people understand that we need to be first in something other than being last. Please, Mom, education. It's confusing. You can't live here and deny that you don't live here. You can go to New York, go to California, but if you are from Mississippi, that tag is free. You might as well be the brightest star, as they say, the sharpest knife in the world. Thank you.
School Superintendent Dr. Ronnie McGee. Dr. McGee is superintendent of one of the fastest growing districts in our state. And he has experienced, as I was talking to him about how that in my district, we build a school and we say, oops, it's already overcrowded. And we have to build another school and oops, it's already overcrowded. And Dr. McGee is going through those kinds of issues in his area. But he will speak about how state budget cuts to public education negatively impact student outcomes. Thank you.
Morning. I'm excited to be here today, but at the same time, sad to be here because we're talking about making an investment in our future that undoubtedly we cannot or will not make. The MAEP, this would be Applicant Education Program, was funded several years ago, and the formula basically targeted our school districts being able to perform at the C level, the mid-range of proper academic performance. So when you don't fund an adequate program, I will tell you that's an inadequate program. Okay? So how many of us want our children and our grandchildren to go to inadequate schools? How many of us want a world-class program? Not only with our next door neighbors in Louisiana and Alabama, all right, but across the country. The reality of it is in Madison County we compete there. When we have underfunded over the last several years, right at $30 million, class size is immediately affected. Anybody who has been in the classroom, there is a difference between 22 7th graders and 28 7th graders. Okay? It's all about relationships. We want to create a competition in Mississippi to be better today than we were yesterday, be better tomorrow than we are today. It's as simple as that. Invest in our future, invest in our young people. Poverty is a terrible thing. The way out of poverty is education. You're looking at the product of an education, a class education in Southwest Mississippi. My dad didn't get out of the 6th grade, didn't have a formal education, but he had a world-class education in that area down there from the world, as he called it, the School of Hard Knocks. Thank goodness my brother came in one day from Natchez Adams High School and said, Dad, I want to go to school. He said, well, you're already in school. He said, no, I'm in college. He looked at me and said, how much does that cost? Mike said, I don't know. He said, well, we'll find a way. So when my older brother went to that great learning institution in the South, the University of Southern Mississippi, go Eagles, all right? I was able to go because my older brother went, what you gonna go do? It's like you're talking about following, correct? So I followed. Then my younger brother followed. And then beyond that, now we have 9 members of the family who graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi. So I'm telling you, we have to invest now for the long haul. That investment every day causes us to compete in Madison County. We have options, public, private, and parochial schools in Madison County. We like to talk about radical hospitality, but sometimes we feel like we're fighting with one hand tied behind our back. We have to offer those opportunities to our public daily for the performance and interactions that they have for their offspring, for their youngsters, because they want them to go off and have a world-class education, and we want them to return to great citizens of the great state of Mississippi. The other part that I want to talk about today is really pretty simple. If the idea is to graduate them, well, first of all, you got to educate them. All right? And if you want to educate them, you got to motivate them. So what we talked daily about in our 12,560 students, 21 different locations and 2.1 million square foot.
One from the northern area of the state. All 3 will focus on how fully funding our public education not only fulfills our legal and moral obligation to students, but also is a major economic development driver that will improve economics in Mississippi for Mississippi citizens throughout our state. Tupelo Mayor Jason Shelton currently serves as mayor of the city of Tupelo, which is the home of the largest public high school in the state of Mississippi. A product of the Tupelo Public School District, Mr. Shelton graduated from Tupelo High School, went on to the Mississippi State University, and later earned his Juris Doctorate at the University of Mississippi Law School of Law. Prior to being elected mayor in 2013, he practiced law in downtown Tupelo. A lifelong resident of Tupelo, Mayor Shelton, the son of a public school teacher and the first mayor in the city's history to hold his swearing ceremony in a public school to symbolize the importance of public education to the city of Tupelo.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and privilege for me to be here today to speak about this critical issue facing not only the state of Mississippi, but each of our municipalities. As was stated, the mayor of Tupelo, which is home to the state's largest public high school, and our school district has more than 7,300 students. I simply cannot state strongly enough how important our schools are to our city, and I've repeatedly stated that our schools are the city's most valuable resource. And that includes each and every one of our wonderful school teachers in Tupelo. Over and over again, I've praised the Tupelo Public School District for having the strongest staff of teachers, principals, and administrators that we have ever had. And I firmly believe that the future of our city, the state of Mississippi, and our public schools are all one and the same. Just like tourism, our economic development efforts, our roads and bridges, if we do not make investing in our schools a top priority, then they're going to continue to decline. In Tupelo, we take great pride in economic development. We were recently selected as the #2 micropolitan area in the nation for business and industry development, and have recently seen the addition of over 900 jobs and $78 million in capital improvement. But I'm here today to say that that absolutely would not have been possible if the industry officials did not feel like they would be able to recruit and retain a competent workforce, and that is simply not possible without a strong public school system. The schools play a vital role in promoting economic development. Toyota, for example, spent a great deal of time in working with our administrators and touring the public school facilities before deciding to locate in the Tupelo area. The same is true for Grammar, which recently located in Tupelo, and the Yokohama Tire Plant that is located near West Point. These industries represent thousands of jobs in our state and are absolutely critical to our local and state economies, but these companies are not going to choose Mississippi without a strong public school system. If it were not for Tupelo and the other public school districts in our area, we simply would not have Toyota, and that would be a devastating blow to our local economy. When it comes to teachers, the pay raises are not just the right thing to do for them, for the hard work and dedication, but they're the right thing to do for our economy. If we want our city and state's economy to grow, we have to make wise and prudent investments, starting with our teachers. To continue to grow our schools and economy, we have to stop the brain drain and our best and brightest from leaving the state of Mississippi to seek better opportunities elsewhere. As the son of a public school teacher, I know firsthand how hard these men and women work day in and day out to make our schools strong and prepare our children for the future and their next steps of life. For that, we owe them more than just thanks and gratitude. It's time to stop talking about teacher pay raises, and it's time to take action. Since I was a child in the public schools, every time an elected official would come, I would hear the same words that I'm saying now, that we have to do more to recruit and retain people here in the state of Mississippi. But there's simply no way to do that if we don't make the investments that are necessary to keep those teachers here in our state. Pertaining to the lack of funding and the pay cuts, the economic realities that we have faced have forced us to make very difficult decisions on both the state and the local level. Because of the lack of adequate funding, Mississippi Public School District employees have not received a raise in a number of years. Meanwhile, the demands on them to operate more efficiently have increased, and the need to work longer hours with less resources has increased. As was stated in the slide presentation, the Tupelo Public School Districts have lost over $17 million in the last several years, and Lee County, which is where Tupelo is located, has lost over $40 million over the last several years. That's over $58 million that the Tupelo-Lee County districts have lost that directly have an adverse impact on our public school districts. But it's more than just money. When we talk about it, the superintendent said, it's more than just losing the $17 million for Tupelo or the $50 million for the county. When we talk about 72 additional teachers in the city of Tupelo, that's not just the teachers, it's their spouses, it's their children, it's their families who would all be contributing members to our community. Most cities, including Tupelo and all around the state, are experiencing a struggling growth in population and a shrinking ad valorem tax base. These jobs, these 72 teachers and their spouses, have an impact, as was stated, is multiplied. When we lose the teachers and the jobs, the cities are losing their basic ability to provide city services for the municipality. I'm very proud to be here today on behalf of the city of Tupelo, Mississippi, to appeal for a meaningful teacher pay raise and adequate funding for the public schools of our state. And Tupelo is, as many know, the birthplace of Elvis Presley. He's our our most famous native son, and to borrow some words for him, when it comes to adequate funding of education, it's time for a little less conversation and a lot more action.
Thank you, Mayor Shelton. Now, Meridian Mayor Percy Glenn. Mayor Percy Glenn is the son of 2 school teachers and husband to Meridian public school teacher. He has been an advocate for our schools both before and after being elected the city of Meridian's mayor. Before being elected, he co-chaired a $19.2 million school bond to help the public school district provide much-needed repairs to their infrastructure. He worked with various volunteer organizations and coached youth basketball while raising his 2 kids in the Meridian Public School District. After being elected in a landslide in 2013, Mayor Glenn has been working on several initiatives to help move the Meridian Public School District forward. He has championed the removal of the zero-tolerance stance in favor of policies that work to educate through opportunity by increasing the number of workforce development courses offered, as well as in-school and after-school programming. Mayor Glenn would like to see a new standard in the city of Meridian. Mayor Glenn believes our youth are our future, and he is working to make his vision a reality. Mayor Glenn.
Good morning. Good morning. I think Chairman Clay has set the stage for everything that we're talking about this morning. Everything in our municipalities, everything in the state of Mississippi starts and ends with education. Let me say that again. Everything in every city, in every community, and in the state of Mississippi starts and ends with education. How well our communities are educated, the quality of life issues, economic development, opportunities, all of those things begin and end with education. I want to thank a lot of people for being here today, because I know it's spring break for a lot of you guys like this, for my wife here that's with me today. But I want you to think about something as you listen to school board members and your superintendents, we have leadership people out there today, teachers and everything. It's called cycles. Mayors are on a 4-year cycle. Superintendents, for the most part, I'm going to use the number 3, 36 months or 3 years. Most mayors come in office the first 5 or 6 months trying to figure their way. In the last 5 or 6 months of that 4-year term, they're trying to run for office for the next 4 years. Most superintendents are given 3-year contracts. In that 3-year period, those superintendents are trying to work with community leaders, trying to work with the teachers, the leadership, the principals, and the community, trying to solve the issues within that district. That's not a lot of time sometimes to get things done. As Chairman Clay said, imagine a football team playing your football team and those kids are tackling without shoulder pads and helmets on their head. That's what we're doing as a state when we have the opportunity to fully fund our MAE program. That's what we're doing as a state, as we do not put our teachers in competitive positions as other states are doing. We cannot continue to be the last in every core major issue and value in the United States of America. The past chairman stated, firstly, it's how much money there, Mr. Clay? Millions of dollars that we have in the bank that are available to us that we're not using. Why? Why? We've got to put what we're committed to and what our core priorities first. Education should be the first priority of any community, any city, and any state. I'm not speaking here today as a mayor, but just as a regular father, a citizen, a parent, and a teacher myself. We cannot compete if we do not have educated people in our communities. We cannot compete if our teachers don't have the tools that they need to motivate, the technology that they need to reach, and if we don't have the relationships with our students to make sure that they have the opportunity to someday be a productive citizen. If we're not doing those things, none of us are doing our job. And when we have the opportunity to go back to our communities and hold leadership accountable, we all must look at how people are voting. Don't look at what they're saying or what they talk about when they come to your community. Look at how they vote in critical areas that make an impact. In our small community, we have a lot of issues. We are 92%. We have about 6,500 students. 90 to 92% of our student enrollment is on free and reduced meals. There's a lot of hope that is not there in a lot of our homes. Education is the only thing that can make that hope for some young boy or young girl a reality. We've lost over $15 million in the last 5 years in Meridian, Mississippi. As Chairman Clay said, that $15 million could possibly equate to close to $100 million when you look at the impact not only on the lost opportunities in jobs and technology, but the indirect cost, the indirect multipliers that it creates in a community like ours. Those type of things hurt our community. Those type of things make it hard for us as mayors to lead our cities. Because if we're not educating our children, guess what? They're not finishing school. They're dropping out. You're going to have teenage pregnancy. You're going to have those same young boys jumping into someone's window. You're going to have that same young boy in someone's prison cell. It's going to be a breakdown of community. All of those things start and end with education. I'm here today as mayor to talk about the things that are important and should be of value to all of us. Public school education. It takes all of us in this room to hold other people accountable. If we have multi-million dollars in the bank, and we know that we are the last state as it relates to education in the United States of America, there is a problem. There is a problem. We have got to invest in what matters most. I'm here as a mayor because what matters most to me is my children and educating each and every child that's a student in our Meridian Public School District. I'm here today to ask all of you to hold those people right behind these doors accountable for the decisions they make every day that affect the way you're able to do your job, the way you're able to educate those children in your classroom, and the way we are as a state and as a community able to be competitive in a world-place environment. If we don't do that, we can come here every year. But as Senator Simmons said, only in 2003 and 2007 have we as a body done the right thing as it relates to MAE. I'm asking each and every one of you all to make phone calls, to hold these leaders accountable for the decisions, and do not listen to what they say, but look at how they vote.
Ocean Springs Mayor Connie Moran. A native of Ocean Springs, Connie Moran was first elected mayor of her hometown in June of 2000. 2005 and took office a mere few weeks before Hurricane Katrina devastated the coastal city. Under Mayor Moran's visionary leadership, Ocean Springs has gone from the rubble of Katrina and destruction of the BP oil disaster in the Gulf to winning the prestigious Main Street Award in 2013. She has 20 years of experience in state and local government as an economic development professional. She served 3 years as director of Jackson County Economic Development and the previous 5 years in Frankfurt, Germany, working as the managing director of the State of Mississippi European Office, where she recruited new business to the state on behalf of the Mississippi Development Authority. Mayor Moran holds bachelor's and master's degrees in finance and economics and international commerce from Georgetown University, where she graduated cum laude. She conducted graduate research at the Institute of World Economics in Germany as a Fulbright scholar and was an economist at the World Trade Organization in Geneva. She is a former fellow at the Robert Bosch Foundation for German-American Leadership, where she worked for the German Ministry of Finance and was even selected as Bosch Alumnus of the Year in 2006 for her leadership in hurricane recovery efforts. Her economic development expertise and creative visionary leadership were continuously cited as reasons voters decided to re-elect her overwhelmingly to her third term of office. Mayor Moran.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for the honor of being able to address this body, prestigious educators, to get out the message to our representatives, our state senators, that education should be the #1 priority in the state of Mississippi. I am personally proud to be a product of an excellent public school system in the Ocean Springs School District. I'm coming to you today not only as a mayor of a great little community that I am so proud to hail from, but also as a mom of a special needs child, a beautiful daughter in a high school with autism and cerebral palsy. And I can tell you throughout my daughter's life how much teachers have personally meant to me, and I have seen it and experienced it, how much they put their heart and soul in each and every child, and I am grateful for it. In Ocean Springs, we value education. Our community knows what that means. We're fortunate to have one of the best school districts in the state. And even after Hurricane Katrina in 2008, our voters went to the polls and voted for a $35 million bond issue. And mind you, we only have 17,500 people to build a state-of-the-art high school, $50 million facility, bigger and better equipped, I think, than our hospital. But that is the value that people in my community place on education and demand it. And that's what we have to get across to everybody, as my colleagues have said, and also Chairman Clay here, we have to demand that our representatives get it too. Now, as Senator Simmons had so eloquently explained to us, $548 million sitting in the bank, and actually more revenue now that the state has brought in since 2008. There is no excuse for at least actually funding education in the state of Mississippi to what? A C level. Come on, let's have some action. Mayor, I can tell you what happens when the legislature fails to fully fund education. They simply shift the burden onto the localities, municipalities, and the counties. Yes. Because what is the school superintendent going to do but come to the city or to the county and ask for higher school millage in order just to keep afloat? Yes. And what do we have to do as mayors and county supervisors? By law, we have to fund their request up to a 55 mil cap. We've been at that cap in Ocean Springs for quite some time. That's why we have to go back with referendums. What happens then for the mayors, boards of aldermen, city councils? We forego our own projects on infrastructure, drainage, streets, sidewalks, parks, recreation. We have to forego that in order to help the school district because that is our priority. But make no mistake about it, we lose infrastructure. We lose the ability to attract new business. And now I'll put my economic development cap on because I tried as much as possible to recruit new business for the state, working for MDA around the country, in Canada, and 6 years in Europe. We lost Mercedes-Benz to the state of Alabama because of education.
Yes.
I have brought many European companies all over the state of Mississippi and other wonderful companies, United States based. They want to go to a community, did you hear me? A community with high quality of life, and they want a workforce that is educated and healthy.
Yes.
My colleagues here in Tupelo and Meridian, that is what we see all the time. We desperately try to bring in new business and create new jobs and wealth. It is about available, trained, educated, healthy workforce is the key to economic development. Not just dumping millions of dollars in incentives to try to buy that company. Let's invest that money in our youth and our people. So I just leave you with that thought. Let's make that shift. Let's let the state of Mississippi invest where it needs to be, in our youth, in our communities. We can get every mayor in this state behind it if we all impress upon our representatives here in this building to fully fund MAEP. It's a disgrace not to do so. Thank you all.
Thank all of our panelists today for bringing all this valuable information. I would challenge you to leave this building and leave these concrete walls and go out there and give the message and take it. Take that light from underneath your basket and let that light shine and show our people in this state that we need business. We want education to be put first, and we want our children to be put first. For more information about everything that's been said today, you can go to MAE's website, maeorg/SOS. Strengthen our schools. Thank you so much for taking your Monday morning and coming to listen to us today. Thank you very much.